She's looks like it's working to connect. So, folks, disaster averted. Thank goodness. There she is. All right.
Yay!
Hey, what great news. Woo, boy, that's it's a little stressful moment there, man. Little technical glitch. Dr. Cassellius, Superintendent, thank you so much for joining us here on our show. We're so thrilled that you were able to give us some time. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Good,
Thank you.
good.
I'm going to just give our listeners and viewers a little bit of a biography of yours, and then we'll just get into a few questions. Okay, it'll take me just a second to list off many of your wonderful achievements. So, Dr. Cassellius has been an educator for 3 decades. She was most recently the Minnesota's Commissioner of Education. In that role, she was enabled to enact an all-day kindergarten program. She sought and received state funding for preschool for 25,000 students. And Minnesota enjoyed its highest high school graduation rate in the state's history during her tenure. Yeah, so a lot to be proud of there. She's also worked in Memphis, Tennessee, where her work focused with middle schoolers. That caught my attention because my mom's from Memphis. I spent a lot of time, a lot of time down in Memphis. So I'm sure you were able to really help their school system, and that's cool. Here in her first year in Boston, Superintendent Cassellius has met with hundreds of students, educators, parents, partners, community members, leaders. She's been all around the city. She's been trying to do everything she can to get her mind around our community and position herself to support us as best she can. So thank you so much for your effort. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yay!
Whew. How are you doing in the midst of the coronavirus? How are you hanging in there?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. It's hard to be home all day, but I've been keeping my busy. If you've been watching me on Insta, giving a few hints around nutrition, some exercise videos where I don't look so good in the morning, but hey, who cares how you look? I'm not about that. Doing some push-up challenge and walking around the block and just trying to enjoy life and keep a positive attitude. That's all you can do right now. Keep safe. And so I hope everybody else is trying to find activities in the home and be safe and connect with your peers and find time for a little joy and laugh a little.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I listened to you a little bit on the radio this morning. You've been published recently in, I think, this weekend's Globe. So you're really doing a great job of getting your message out. What is kind of one of your central messages that you've been trying to share with the community in these different media when you've presented yourself to the media in these ways?
Been trying to say, don't worry, be happy, right? Just a very basic message that we will get through this and we'll get through this together. And to pay attention to your mental health. It's okay to cry. I was talking to BSAC last week and I was just having a moment. I had hit my wall. This is a really hard job to reinvent education. There's a lot of coordinating pieces. We have 10,000 employees, 55,000 kids, and it just was starting to weigh heavy on my heart that I knew there were kids who were still hungry. I knew that there were kids with disabilities who we weren't reaching yet. I just had a moment. So I had to get on this Zoom call with my kids and with the youth, and it just they saw me have a couple of tears, and I think that's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to get it out. And then to look for that way back out, to look for the bright spot and to look for your support system and to connect with the people who love you the most. And I hope all of you have someone at home that you can just hug and get love from and to give love to.
Absolutely. That's great. I wanted to just start off our conversation by asking what got you into education? It sounds like your passion is kind of for the field is coming forth just now. I just wanted to, what was it like when you decided, or how did you decide to become an educator?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, I grew up in poverty in the projects of Southeast Minneapolis to a single mom for most of my childhood. And I had people who paid it forward for me, camp counselors, the people at the park and rec clubs who taught me how to play sports and you know, coaches and the librarian and the bookmobile lady and the Head Start people at my preschool program. You know, so many people had inspired me so much. But I also knew, even though my dad wasn't a big part of being present, you know, daily in the life, but I knew he loved me. And so I say I grew up in poverty, but I didn't have a poverty of love. I knew that my dad loved me, even though he didn't live with me. And he had quite a remarkable story as an African-American man. One of the first commercial airline pilots in the United States that was Black. And his parents were both professors at Florida A&M University. You know, that's a HBCU. And my grandfather actually started as a business teacher in high school. And he was also the president of the Negro Teachers Union. And he fought for Black teachers to get the same pay as white teachers. Thurgood Marshall was his lawyer. And so
no way.
So just knowing of that legacy in my past, even though I didn't get to know my grandparents very well, I knew of them. I knew that they loved me. They lived in Florida, so I lived in Minnesota, so a great distance between us. But I knew of their legacy. I knew of their struggle, and I knew of my own Black heritage and lineage, and that made a difference, I think, in my life and grounding me in who I was and what I wanted to be. And my dad would always tell me, Brenda, you're going to have to work. You can be whoever you want to be in life. This is America, but you're going to have to work twice as hard because you are a Black woman. And so I always had a really strong work ethic because of that challenge and expectation in my life.
Wow. What a story. That's incredible. I didn't realize you had such a rich history of your grandparents. What wonderful activists and role models. What our theme here in our conversations has been good to great. That's kind of our little title. And the conversation. Oh, was that?
It's a really great book. There's a book from Jim Collins called Getting from Good to Great.
Oh, really? Okay.
It says that there are 3 things to getting great. And the one is disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action.
Okay.
And highly disciplined people, meaning just disciplining yourself, like doing what you say you're going to do, being of high integrity, and keeping your promises, and not fuzzy promises. He used an analogy. He said that people, you know, there's a guy who was a runner and he was watching his diet, and he said that he used to rinse his cottage cheese. That's how disciplined he was about his diet. So I always think about, am I rinsing my cottage cheese?
Wow, that is down to the details there. So in light of that, we've talked to a bunch of folks involved in sports and also education. The question for you is, what when you see a student really make a big improvement in their performance, how does it happen? What do you observe? What goes on in that kid? Maybe they were an average or not so great student, and they somehow decided, I want to make a change. What precipitates that decision, and then what makes a possible, transformation in performance?
For a student who was struggling prior and determines to turn it around, it's typically someone who believed in them and helped them find within them the goals that they want to set for themselves and how to achieve it, and showed them the way and offered them support, and they took it. Sometimes that can happen and the student doesn't take it, and then they don't get on the right path. And sometimes they just find it themselves. They just look within themselves and they say, doggone it, I want to do this. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a teacher. I want to be the best tennis player. I want to, whatever it is, and they find it, and they're rinsing their cottage cheese. And they're highly disciplined. It's disciplined thought. And what that means really is that you don't let all the garbage come into your mind. You don't do the stinking thinking, I call it. You keep a clear, positive outlook on life. And then the second thing is the disciplined action. And that is that you make good choices. I always said to my students, the choices you make today impact the choices that you can make tomorrow. So if anything comes of this Instagram today and the people on it, just every choice you make today impacts, either opens up new choices for tomorrow or limits the choices you can make tomorrow. And so I think that those are two things that are just incredibly important for our young people to know and to have as they craft their course moving forward.
Absolutely. Wow. I didn't really even realize this was a book that I've kind of stolen the name from. I should do a little more research on my own program.
Yeah. And they say, don't get caught in the doom loop.
The doom loop. All right. So we were speaking with a woman last week. She's actually a Tenacity staff person who's a coach in a junior college basketball program. And she was saying some of the same stuff, that you get the support, you're putting forth the plan to succeed. But a lot of kids don't take it. You know, they don't take advantage of opportunities. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. Like, you know, in Boston public schools, there's a lot of opportunity that goes by kids, and maybe they don't, maybe or maybe not, do they take the school system up on it? How would you encourage, inspire, motivate, maybe change, you know, that stinking thinking to have a more positive outlook? What do you think goes into that type of change?
So what I found with opportunities for youth, it's not so much they don't take it because they don't want to take it.
Of course.
I think what I found with youth, it's because, you know, I have this opportunity, these tennis courses or do whatever. One, I don't have the financial means to do it. Or two, it's free and I do have the financial means to do it, but my parents expect me to be home at 2:00 to get my little sister at the bus stop and then take her on her way. Or three, I just don't have enough belief in myself that I actually can do it, or it requires equipment to do it, or, you know, I don't have any friends who are doing it, or, you know, those types of things, but not so much that they don't want to do it. There's usually a barrier. And if that barrier is removed and a good adult advocate helps them navigate it, typically they're able to take more advantage of that opportunity. It's really developing a goal. You know that kids who develop a goal in junior high school are much more likely than kids that don't to graduate. And so one of the things I'm going to do as Boston Public Schools superintendent is ensure that every single middle school kid makes a goal. Because if you set goals for yourself and you can see a clear pathway on how to get those goals and you know the plan, it actually seems more doable. I mean, I can't tell you the number of kids who say, oh, no, I'm not ever going to go to college. One, I can't afford it. Two, you know, I'm not smart enough. I won't be able to persevere in college, or, you know, other reasons, my family won't allow it, or I just don't know how to get started on something that big, you know. But it's important for kids to have that dream and to understand what are the steps and work backwards from that dream to how you're going to get there. And then it does become much more doable and they're able to see it, especially as they begin to accomplish things on that pathway and they begin to go, okay,
right,
I've already done it this much. You know, it's kind of like a diet, right? You know, you get into an 8-week challenge of a diet. You've gotten through 2 weeks. You go, well, I got through the first 2 weeks. I think I can do the third and fourth week. Then you get halfway through and you're like, well, heck no, I'm not going to waste all the 4 weeks I already did. You know, I'm going to continue to go the whole way through, and then you hit your goal. So I think, you know, it's just really understanding those milestones along the way.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, some of the stuff that we see in Tenacity, you know, like you said, I don't think there are very many kids who just don't want to, you know, take up an opportunity. There are a lot of barriers. And one of them you touched on is like that self-esteem, that confidence, that feeling that, yeah, I can achieve something. And so we try and do little steps, small achievements, build up some momentum to then be you know, go on and take, you know, bite off a little more, go for a little bigger, swing a little harder, shoot a little further. And we find that navigating that through the ups and downs of an adolescent life can work great, but it's very, very tough. How do you think about that, like, say, from the whole trajectory of a student, from, you know, you did a lot of great work in kindergarten, in the early education in Minnesota. How do you see all of those pieces connecting to form, not necessarily a straight line, obviously, but a trajectory that leads to success for students?
Well, everything starts, you know, prenatal for a child. I mean, the little synapses in the brain are starting to grow so early on. And from 0 to 3, we have to help with parenting and help parents support children, especially with attachment for love and belonging. That's so important, that kids feel attached to their parent, whether it's one, two, or even a grandparent or adoptive parent. It doesn't really matter. As long as someone is providing that love and belonging to the child, then they usually do really well. And so it's, and if that's not available in the home, and unfortunately for some of our kids, it's not available in the home, that they have other avenues to seek that with a neighbor or with an aunt or grandmother or a school teacher or coach or somebody who can be an advocate and help them along their pathway so they can continue to persevere. I think it's really important that everybody has an advocate. I had so many wonderful people, even as an adult person, becoming a better person and a better leader. My pastor, my colleagues, I've had mentors along the way who have just been wonderful, and they'll call and check in on me still now.
Really? Wow. So you had mentioned something about goal setting for public school students, and I'm kind of in it as maybe we'll transition to how do you envision Boston Public Schools, the district, going from good to great or making a big leap in performance? What are some ways that you've envisioned that process of improvement?
Well, the first thing that I really focused on was trying to cultivate the trust with the community and get the trust back in the community. I think that had been broken. There had been a number of different superintendents for very many years here. And so it really was to try to get out there and meet people and be present and show up. Half of the problem is just showing up and having people meet you and see that you're a real person too. I put my pants on, one leg at a time, just like everybody else does. I make mistakes, just like everybody else does. And so I think that it's really important that I went out and I listened, and then we started to work together on, well, what are the commitments we want to make to each other, and what's the work going to look like? And we really started with, we have to focus on our children and our children who need us the most. And so looking at equity and looking at the children who are struggling the most is our number one value and key strategic commitment. And that is really trying to close opportunity gaps, expand opportunity for our youth, especially those who have been marginalized and have not been included before. And then it's to amplify voice and to continue these trusting partner relationships and authentic engagement with our community, and to cultivate trust. And so those are some really important measures that we're going to be looking at and monitoring and holding ourselves accountable for as we move forward.
Okay. And so how would you measure like cultivating trust? How would you measure like some of those aspirations seem to be like maybe difficult to measure, or maybe need to be measured in ways that whatever I'm not clear on. How would you measure like those type of aspirations?
Well, for instance, the community asked us to focus on teacher diversity. They asked us to have teachers and our workforce reflect the community and the rich cultural heritage of the community. If we deliver on that, now we've kept our promise.
Got it. Yeah.
So I think that that's how you measure trust. Also, if people aren't coming and complaining because, they're feeling listened to. And if they express to you that they're feeling listened to, we have family surveys that we can do this in a more formalized way and collect quantitative data. But it's the anecdotal data. And are people remarking about the school? Are they saying that Boston Public Schools is remarkable? Is it something worth talking about?
Yeah.
And so I think that also is a measure of cultivating trust.
Absolutely. And even in what you just said about if the community has said one teacher diversity, then that, and you're responding and committing to that, then that's amplifying the voice of the community, which is another one of the goals that you mentioned. In this current situation with the coronavirus, and has there emerged any unique opportunities or anything that's come up out of this kind of unprecedented situation that's turned a light bulb on or made us think as a, you know, maybe you or as a superintendent or the overall community of Boston educators think about, oh, wow, like this is a whole opportunity we didn't quite see, but now is evident or now is coming to light?
Well, there are things that we had seen before, and they were dilemmas, things that were very hard to solve. You know, a problem you can solve, right? But a dilemma is an ongoing, long-term, sustained, systemic problem. And we knew that the inequities existed within our system. And so we knew that there were a lot of dilemmas that we had to address. So technology is one, right? So we knew kids didn't have, not everybody had a device at home. And then we knew they didn't have Wi-Fi. Well, how are we going to guarantee it in the future? And that means political will. That means shifting our budget to guarantee that they are now connected in the future. You know, no more putting it on the back burner. Another one, parent engagement. We know parents are a child's first teacher. We say that, you know, all the time. Oh, you know, parent is a child's first teacher. Well, now they really are. You know, and so how are we going to embrace and give parents the tools to actually do the job that we're asking them to do with us while kids are at home and we can't have children at school? So we have to find ways to give parents the tools to engage with them, to connect with them. And now if they have the Chromebook, we have seen that there's a really great opportunity here to capture how we engage with our parents more purposefully and more intentionally. And I think that's what has been emerging as such an incredible opportunity here to get right finally and to really think differently about it. And then I think the third one is just really around remote learning all itself, you know, and just the access that it gives to students to a whole number of resources, learning materials and content that are available. But what we've learned is that you have to curate that and make it sensible so that it's easily accessible to students, because it's just not easy for them to sign onto an app or to go to some website or something like that. So there's a lot of opportunities within the remote learning to really personalize learning one-to-one. And I don't think, and this is something I learned in Memphis, you really don't get at closing achievement gaps unless you personalize learning and it is really a student by student plan. And so we're developing remote learning, individualized remote learning plans for students. We're going to start focusing on the kids that need us the most.
Individualized remote learning plans. Wow.
Excited to hear about that. That's kind of a little tip you're going to start hearing about.
Okay, nice. We just got a scoop, guys. Well, I'll be aware of individualized remote learning plans. I just wanted to follow up a little bit about parents. Like, what are they doing differently now, do you think? And I think they're kind of thrust into a new position of kind of being right on the front lines of their kids' education and in ways that they may or may not have been before. Maybe they were, but definitely everyone's dealing with a new situation there. What are you seeing or hearing that is going really well on the part of parents being that teacher, if that's what's happening?
So the best thing parents can do is to create a schedule. So those kids who are doing really well have really mastered the routine and the schedule. When there's crisis all around and uncertainty all around, it's really good for children and for a family to have certainty and to have predictability. And so developing a schedule, you know, waking up in the morning, you know, taking care of your, you know, food needs, having, you know, eating breakfast together, then, you know, showering, working out, whatever, and then getting on to your activities, then spending some time together, maybe playing outside or, you know, then getting back to some independent practice around your learning, and then, you know, lunch, and maybe the little ones take a nap, and then mom and dad do something else, you know, or grandma or auntie or whatever. It's really mastering that kind of routine down, because so much of us, you know, go moment by moment, and we really do not schedule routine too well.
Right.
In our days, even, you know, a lot of kids are like, well, no, I got this club that I'm going to, or I got play practice today, or, you know, no, I got basketball practice. And then they come home at 7, 8 o'clock at night after the game, and they just grab something quick to eat, you know, and they miss that connection with their parents.
Right. Yeah.
When I was I am still a parent. Obviously, you can see them on the wall there. These are my
nice.
kids. That's Christian. He's 31. My daughter's an artist. That's Ani Grace. She's the artist, and she did all these portraits.
Oh, she did those?
Yep. And that's Charlie, my youngest. But when I was a, mom all the time, now they're older, right, and in college. And Christian's he's a creative. But we used to eat dinner every single night. Well, not every single night, but we tried to almost every single night, especially when they were little, what part of our routine. And we would say, what was your high today? What was your low today?
Right.
And that then gave us a really good window into what they were celebrating and what was going well for them. And then when they were also having mental health issues or having crisis in their life, we were able to then talk with them and talk it through with them. So that was just always, we still do that now when we get together, as a family. It's just a great way to connect.
I love. So we were actually, Tenacity does a lot of family engagement. We engage a lot with families. We visit all of our students' homes twice a year. And in these relationships, we're finding that some of the parents or guardians are actually essential workers, aren't in the house all the time to maybe be able to do some of these things. What would you say to those families who might be in that situation where maybe the kid has more independent time than they otherwise might?
That's where the schedule comes in,
right?
Because you make commitments to one another, and then you try to be there at that time. And so, that's where you keep your promises and you try to make time for each other. So even if you're busy and you're an essential worker, and thank you for that. I mean, if you are doing that, thank you so much for being on the front lines for all of your hard work that you're doing. And I know a lot of our students are at grocery stores and they're working in nursing homes and they're helping out. And boy, that service to your community is so incredible. So I very much appreciate that. And I would just say, as parents, as aunties, as cousins, grandma, grandpas, whoever is the caregiver for our children, that you just find time to touch base every single day with the youth in your home and just, make sure they're okay.
Nice. We want to just continue on with this question about the coronavirus situation as it kind of edges and extends into the summer. What are ways that partners or that could really support the Boston school system, BPS, in, I don't know, supporting education and achieving some goals throughout the summertime?
We're still trying to reach about 500 of our kids. And so what we're trying to do now is, we know some of our kids are working or maybe have moved to be in a safer situation with another family. We just don't have contact information for them. So if partners have made connections with kids, they can let us know. That would be really helpful, so that we can account for them and make sure that they're engaging and they're learning. That's one way. The other way is, I know a number of them have been doing these kinds of things remotely and keeping them engaged and doing videos and Snapchats and other types of things to keep them engaged. Really supporting our parents is another way. If you do have those relationships, there's a study that was just done that showed that the teacher does do a home visit and really likes the parent and has a good relationship with the parent, the student actually improves their grades and does better, and is less likely to get suspended.
Right. Yeah.
Simply because of the relationship.
Wow.
James Comer was a psychologist and said no significant learning happens outside of a significant relationship.
Absolutely. Well, that's what we definitely find that at Tenacity. It's not easy to get out to all those families all the time, but we do find that it makes a heck of an impact when we can. Dr. Cassellius, I finish off our interviews with a series of kind of quick questions. So I want to be respectful of your time.
Not like a standardized test or anything, is it?
No. Far from it. It's just kind of fun stuff.
Really bad trivia.
No, it's not. It's about you and your things that you enjoy. And for example, like you've mentioned a couple things that you've read. What is your favorite book? This is question number one. Your favorite book that you're reading now, you read as a kid, any book that occurs to you as one of your favorites.
Oh, well, my favorite book as a kid was Harold and the Purple Crayon. But I've got to say, the professional book that has made the biggest difference for me is Jim Collins' Good to Great.
Is that right?
It's interesting that you picked that today. I mean, I just find that serendipitous.
Absolutely. Good title of a book and an Instagram live chat series. Okay. All right. And who's your favorite athlete? What athlete really inspires you or you think is a great role model?
My favorite athlete. How about my favorite athletic team?
Okay. Sure. Fine. Who's your favorite athletic team?
So it would probably be the Gopher women's hockey team.
The Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Yes.
Okay.
They're champions, and they're just amazing students, and they're amazing civic participants and community members, and they're also just awesome on the ice and super fun to watch.
That's
and then
cool.
then of course the Minnesota Vikings. I'm a pretty big football fan.
There you go. Nice. All right. So we know, or I've learned that you really love hockey. I know you played little hockey with one of the high school teams, Latin Academy, I think.
No, BLS.
Oh, excuse me, BLS. Thanks. I know you skated with them. But when was the last time that you played tennis?
Ooh, I played pickleball just a few months ago.
Right.
Does that count?
No, it doesn't count. No, it doesn't count.
I probably played last summer with my son.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Was that in Minnesota or was that here?
Yeah, we have a tennis court that's just down the street from our house at the park, and that was a lot of fun to play.
All right. For those listening in, oh, there it is. Yeah, we got a tennis racket right there. Superintendent Cassellius was an aspiring player as a young person. Went down to Florida to train a little bit. We just recently learned. So she's got a real passion, or I hope still a passion for tennis and for pickleball. That's awesome. Cool. All right. Now you've shared a couple of these before throughout our conversation, but what's a motivational phrase or mantra that keeps you going and inspires you on a daily or on a periodic basis?
Let's see. I say when I'm going to eat something I shouldn't eat, I say a minute on the lips, forever on the lips.
That's what my mom said that all the time. All right. Makes you think twice about it. All right. Okay. So we talked about this a little bit too. What's one kind of really unique and interesting and exciting idea that you've seen come out of this coronavirus period? I know that you were doing the push-up challenge. We obviously appreciate you being here on the show. What's another idea, cool, creative, fun thing that an organization or a teacher or somebody came up with that you've been like, damn, that's a cool idea?
Oh, just these videos that they're doing have been just awesome. And you know what's touched me the most is the funerals and the way that people are doing the drive-by funerals, and it's just we had a secretary who lost her dad, and it was just the most beautiful thing to see all of the staff and students, over 200 cars, come by the house and drive by and just offer their condolences and give air hugs out to and I mean that was just I think that was one of the most touching things. I was sobbing like crazy on when I watched that video. But
wow, that's sweet. All right, and so to harken back to your days possibly as a teacher or as an educator, what was a behavior of a student that really drove you crazy, that was like kind of a pet peeve?
I didn't like when students would put other students down.
Yeah.
And they would do it in like kind of subtle ways. And so one of the things we also did with my young children was if they said something to their brother or sister that was a subtle way of putting them down, I trained them to ask each other, is that a loving thing to say?
Wow.
And what it did was, I mean, it sounds a little corny, but what it does is whenever somebody says something negative, you just ask them, well, was that a loving thing to say? And then they have to reflect on that. And then they learn empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And they learn that, you're not going to accept it, one, and you're going to hold them accountable for what they said to you. But then you quickly forgive them.
Yeah, of course. Just makes me think, did you ever get, and I don't know from your kids, but from any of your students or whatever, just like No, it wasn't loving, Mom. What? I don't have to be loving every second of my life. Did you ever get like pushback and attitude, and how do you respond to that? Because these are great conversations to have with kids. I just, in my career, they sometimes go differently than I think.
Yeah, I've been pretty blessed that way. You ask it to them in a way where it's really genuine, and
Yeah.
they know they were wrong, and then they say, "Well, I was just mad," or
Mm-hmm.
or they'll usually say, "Well, she called me something," or they did something else, and I said, "Well, then two wrongs don't make
Right,
a
right, right.
right." And so then, well, and I say, "Okay, well, I bring it to your attention because I wanted you to know, um, what you did was hurtful."
Yeah, of course. Like you said, it has consequences. Like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these things.
And I always try to give my children as many choices as I possibly can, and not tell them what they have to do.
Right.
If you can give students and you can give your young people choices, like if you have a really stubborn 3-year-old and they don't want to wear what you want them to wear in the morning, right? I want to wear what I want to wear. Well, then negotiate with them. Say, okay, well, here's the 3 outfits. You pick them out the night before, and then you can choose the next morning.
Absolutely.
Which of the 3. So when you give them that sense of agency and sense of choice, then a strong-willed child will have their needs met about being strong-willed and being in control, and you don't have to take that away yourself. You've enabled them to have their own sense of agency, and so I think that's really, really important to do.
Totally. We find that also with middle school and high school students. Give options. If they don't want to do tennis, well, let's see something else that you could do that still be productive. All right, last 2 questions. So the second to last one is a meal that you've enjoyed recently. Something that either with people or a great dish, something you prepared, you went out to dinner, a memorable meal that you've had recently.
Oh, well, we're all kind of cooped up here, right? So you have to make your own meals or you go and do takeout. So I went down to the Daily Table. I live in Roxbury, so I can walk to the Daily Table, which is this wonderful little market, and their mission is incredibly wonderful, to serve the community and to not charge a huge price for it. And they had this Szechuan bowl that was there at the market, and I wasn't expecting much, because it was already prepared. I'd have to heat it in the microwave, but that was so good. It was really good.
That's great. Is that the one down in Dudley?
Yeah, it's the one in Dudley. Yeah, I live in Dudley Square.
Oh, cool. That's great. All right, and then last question.
Oh, wait. I live in Nubian Square.
Oh, okay. Just for the record, folks.
For the record, it was. Yeah.
Last thing is, what's your favorite part about Boston?
The people. And so I think, and that sounds corny too, but I've been really welcomed, and I was expecting it, like, the people are so hard here and judgmental, and they're not nice to outsiders or anything, and I've not experienced that at all. So
I'm so glad.
I've been very blessed to be welcomed here, and I've really enjoyed Boston. I have not had much time on the ocean, which is I'm a water person. I love water, but I just haven't had time to get out to the ocean yet.
Well, hopefully soon. Who knows what the future holds here for us all, but hopefully soon. Boston's certainly thrilled to have you. The educational community, Boston Public School community, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you just like that? Oh, I'm so sorry to squeeze this one last thing in, but a student had asked me, so sorry. We had just had, we have a lot of kids who are so excited to be graduating high school, and their hearts are kind of broken a little bit because of the announcement from yesterday, I think, about graduation and a ceremony and their diploma, and how is that going to get resolved? Do you have a sense of that at all? I know it's very recent news, so no pressure, but what's your first couple thoughts on that issue?
So we had originally started thinking like some of the higher ed organizations are going to be having online ceremonies. So we kind of floated that to our youth cabinet, and they just really still want to be in person and have their commencements in person. So we're going to do everything we can to try to see how we could do that this summer, if it's at all possible. It's just
postponed.
Yeah, but we just can't do anything until we can be safe, right? That's the number one thing, is that we're safe and our
Totally.
community is safe. And, you know, we wouldn't want to put anybody at risk for that. So we're looking at ways that can be fun to commemorate some of the loss, and recognize some of the students and the seniors that are, that I think can provide that recognition, and create a nice memory. But,
Absolutely.
you know, we're still working on the logistics around how would we do an in-person graduation if it's allowable.
For sure. Yeah. All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much. Please count on Tenacity for anything that we can help with. If it's generating a great graduation ceremony in some creative way, we put events on all the time, and we cannot wait to get you out on the tennis courts whenever it's safe to do so. We'd be thrilled to have you out here. And I just want to say truly and very, very sincerely, thank you so much for all that you're doing, for all the kids in Boston, for all the teachers, for all the staff, for all of us as partners. You're an inspiration to us all, and just truly, deeply thank you. I am so impressed and happy to have gotten to talk to you. And boy, you're having a tough first year. This first year has been a wild, crazy ride. And I'm really thrilled that you're the person that's kind of guiding us through this. And
well, it takes the whole team. It's not
well, absolutely.
I have a lot of wonderful
bringing everybody to the table to be a team as we work our way through this. So thank you so much. And best of luck to you. Stay safe.
Thank you to the teachers, to the parents. I want to say thank you to our whole community partners who have wrapped their arms around us, you know, and our students. We could not do it without the teachers, without the central office staff, without all of our partners, and the whole city of Boston really coming together. I say all hands on deck. So students who are watching this, you got a lot of people who are pulling for you, a lot of people who love you, and we will get through this. We will get through this. Be safe.
Be safe. Okay. Thank you so much again, Dr. Cassellius.
Yep.
Have a great day.